Jake Morrison walked through the busy streets of Station Kepler 7. The space station was huge, with thousands of different aliens living and working together. He had been looking for work for 3 weeks now. His money was running low, and he needed a job soon. Jake was 32 years old and had worked as an engineer in the Earth Navy for 10 years. He had fixed broken ships, repaired weapons, and kept life support systems running during dangerous missions. But now he was tired of fighting wars. He wanted a peaceful job where he could use his skills to help people instead of hurt them. The job office was on level 15 of the station. Jake took the elevator up and walked inside. The waiting room was full of aliens he had never seen before. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking rocks, and a few seemed to be made of pure energy. A tall alien with green scales and yellow eyes called his name. "Jake Morrison, please come in." Jake followed the alien into a small office. The alien was at least 7 feet tall and had sharp teeth. His nameplate said, "Captain Zektar." "Please sit down," Zektar said. His voice was deep and rough. "I am looking for an engineer to join my salvage crew." Jake sat in the chair across from the captain's desk. "What kind of salvage work?" "We find old ships floating in space," Zektar explained. "Ships that have been abandoned or lost. We go inside and take anything valuable. Then we sell it." "Sounds simple enough," Jake said. "What's the catch?" Zektar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "The work is dangerous. The ships we find are in bad places. Places where other crews have died. That is why the pay is so good." Jake thought about it. He needed money, and he was not afraid of danger. "How much does it pay?" 5,000 credits. "Per month, plus a share of any valuable items we find," Zektar said. "But you must understand, this is not easy work. My last engineer died 3 months ago." "How did he die?" Jake asked. "Automated defense systems on an old warship," Zektar said. "He was not fast enough to get away." Jake nodded. He had dealt with defense systems before. "What about the rest of your crew?" "Come meet them," Zektar said. He led Jake to another room, where 3 aliens were waiting. The first alien looked like a giant praying mantis with 4 arms. His body was covered in hard black shell, and his eyes were like red jewels. "This is Vorthik," Zektar said. "He handles weapons and security." The second alien was beautiful and strange. She seemed to be made of blue light that moved like water. Jake could see through her, but she was still solid somehow. "This is Lyra," Zektar said. "She is our navigator." The third alien was huge, and looked like he was made of gray rocks. He was at least 8 feet tall and very wide. His eyes glowed yellow, and when he moved, Jake could hear rocks grinding together. "This is Grunt," Zektar said. "He handles heavy lifting." The 3 aliens looked at Jake with interest. He could tell they were not sure about him. Humans were still new to the galaxy, and many aliens did not trust them yet. "What do you think of our human?" Zektar asked his crew. Vorthik clicked his mandibles together. "He looks weak. No natural armor. No claws or fangs. How will he protect himself?" "Humans are soft," Grunt said. His voice sounded like rocks falling. "They break easily." Lyra said nothing, but Jake could see her studying him carefully. Her blue light pulsed slowly as she thought. "I have read about humans," Zektar said. "They are supposed to be good at solving problems. They think in ways that other species do not." Jake decided to speak up. "I have been an engineer for 10 years. I have fixed things that other people said could not be fixed. I have kept ships running when they should have fallen apart. I am not the strongest or the fastest, but I am good at finding solutions." "We will see," Vorthik said. "But if you slow us down or get us killed, I will leave you behind." Jake looked the insect alien in the eye. Fair enough. But if I save your life, you owe me a drink. Vorthik made a sound that might have been laughter. I like this human. He has courage. Zektar stood up. Good. Jake Morrison, you are hired. We leave for the Nightmare Sector in 1 week. Use that time to get ready and learn about our ship. The Nightmare Sector was a dangerous part of space where many ships had disappeared. It was full of old derelict vessels from different alien races. Some had been there for hundreds of years. Most salvage crews were afraid to go there, but that was why the treasures inside were so valuable. Jake spent the next week learning about the Starbreaker, Zektar's ship. It was a tough vessel built for long journeys and dangerous work. The ship had strong shields, powerful engines, and equipment for cutting through metal and rock. He also learned about his new crewmates. Vorthik was a warrior from a planet where insects ruled. His people were born fighters, and he had been in many battles. Lyra was from a race of energy beings who lived in the cores of stars. Her people were naturally good at navigation because they could feel the pull of gravity and magnetic fields. Grunt was a golem, a rock creature from a world with very strong gravity. His people were incredibly strong and tough. Jake was the only human on the crew. He was also the youngest and had the least experience with salvage work. But he was not worried. He had been the outsider before, and he had always found a way to prove himself. On the day they were supposed to leave, Jake arrived at the ship early. He wanted to check all the systems and make sure everything was working properly. He found a few small problems and fixed them before the others arrived. When Zektar saw what Jake had done, he nodded approvingly. Good work. Maybe you will be useful after all. The Starbreaker lifted off from Station Kepler 7 and headed toward the Nightmare Sector. Jake stood on the bridge and watched the stars change as they jumped into hyperspace. He was nervous but excited. This was the beginning of a new adventure. He had no idea that he was about to become a legend. The Nightmare Sector looked exactly like its name suggested. Jake stared out the window of the Starbreaker at the dark region of space ahead of them. Broken ships floated everywhere, like the bones of dead giants. Some were small fighters, others were huge cargo vessels, and a few were warships bigger than cities. How many ships are out there? Jake asked. Thousands, Zektar replied. Maybe tens of thousands. Ships have been disappearing in this area for over 300 years. No one knows why. What happened to the crews? Jake asked. Some escaped in life pods, Lyra said. Her blue light pulsed slowly as she spoke. Others were never found. Ships just went dark and stopped responding to radio calls. Jake studied the sensor readings on his screen. Most of the ships showed no power at all. They were completely dead, floating in space like empty shells. But a few still had faint energy signatures. That one, Jake pointed to a large ship on the scanner. It still has power. Zektar looked at the reading. That is our target, a Kitharan battlecruiser. It has been drifting here for over 100 years, but the computers show it still has an active power core. Why does it still have power after all this time? Jake asked. Automated systems, Vorthik said. The ship runs itself even with no crew. Very advanced technology. Jake frowned. Something about this did not feel right. If the ship has power, why has no one salvaged it before? Other crews have tried, Zektar said. 3 teams went aboard. In the last 10 years, none of them came back. What happened to them? We do not know. Their ships were found floating empty. The crews had vanished. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Maybe we should pick a different target. Grunt laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. The human is scared already. I told you he was too weak for this job. I am not scared. Jake said, I am being careful. There is a difference. Careful is good, Zektar said. But this ship contains technology worth millions of credits. Kitharan weapons and armor are the best in the galaxy. We cannot pass up this opportunity. The Starbreaker moved closer to the derelict battle cruiser. The ship was massive, over 2 miles long and covered in thick armor plating. Its weapon systems were silent, but Jake could see that they were still intact. Life support is still running, Lyra reported. The ship has breathable air and normal gravity. Any life signs? Zektar asked. None that I can detect, Lyra said, but my sensors cannot see through all that armor. There could be something inside. Jake studied the ship's design. He had never seen a Kitharan vessel before, but he had read about them. The Kitharans were a warrior race that had disappeared from the galaxy 50 years ago. Their ships were built like fortresses, with multiple layers of defense systems. Captain, Jake said, I think we should be very careful. This ship is too well preserved. After 100 years, it should be falling apart. But look at it. Hull is perfect. The weapons are clean. Even the lights are still working. You worry too much, Vorthik said. The ship is empty. We go in, take what we want, and leave. Simple. Jake shook his head. Nothing is ever that simple, especially not in the nightmare sector. But Zektar had already made his decision. We will board the ship. Vorthik, Grunt, and Jake will go first. Lyra and I will stay on the Starbreaker and monitor the situation. Jake put on his spacesuit and checked his equipment. He had a plasma cutter for opening doors, a scanner for detecting valuable items, and a small pistol for protection. He also had a toolkit with everything he needed to repair or disable electronic systems. The 3-person boarding team took a small shuttle to the battlecruiser. They docked at an airlock near the ship's main cargo bay. Jake watched his scanner carefully as they approached, but he saw no signs of danger. The airlock opened easily, and they stepped inside the alien ship. The corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. The walls were covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft blue light. The power core is in the center of the ship, Vorthik said, checking his map. The weapons. Storage is on level 5. We should split up to cover more ground. Bad idea, Jake said. We should stay together. If something goes wrong, we can help each other. Nothing will go wrong, Grunt said. This ship is dead. There is nothing here but valuable salvage. But Jake was already noticing things that worried him. The corridors were too clean. There was no dust or debris anywhere. The air smelled fresh, like it was being recycled by active life support systems. They walked deeper into the ship, following the main corridor toward the center. Jake kept his scanner running, but it was not detecting any valuable items yet. All the good stuff would be in the secured areas deeper in the ship. Wait, Jake said, stopping suddenly. He knelt down and looked at the floor. Do you see this? Vorthik and Grunt looked where Jake was pointing. There were faint marks on the metal floor, like something heavy had been dragged across it recently. So? Grunt said. Could be anything. Could be someone, Jake said. These marks are fresh. Made in the last few days. Maybe hours. Impossible, Vorthik said. The ship has been empty for 100 years. Jake stood up and looked around more carefully. Now that he was paying attention, he could see other signs. A door that was slightly open when it should have been closed. A control panel that looked like it had been recently used. Small things that most people would miss. I think we should go back, Jake said. This ship is not as empty as we thought. We just got here, Grunt said. I am not leaving without any salvage. The human is right to be cautious, Vorthik said. But we have come too far to turn back now. We will continue, but we will be more careful. They reached the ship's main cargo bay. It was enormous, big enough to hold a dozen smaller ships. And it was full of treasure. Weapons, armor, computer systems, and other valuable items were stored in organized rows. "Look at all this," Grunt said, his eyes glowing brighter. "We will be rich." Jake was still worried, but even he had to admit the salvage was impressive. There was enough valuable equipment here to buy a small planet. He started scanning the items to determine which ones were worth the most. That was when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in. Red light. An alarm began to sound, and blast doors started closing all around the cargo bay. "What is happening?" Vorthik shouted. Jake was already moving, running toward the nearest door. "Defense system activated. We need to get out of here now." But it was too late. The blast doors slammed shut with a sound like thunder. They were trapped in the cargo bay with no way out. Then the real attack began. Energy beams shot from hidden weapons in the walls. Jake threw himself behind a stack of metal crates as bright blue lasers cut through the air where he had been standing. The beams were hot enough to melt steel, and they were firing in a pattern that covered the entire cargo bay. Vorthik was already moving, his 4 arms pulling out different weapons. His natural armor could protect him from small arms fire, but these ship defense systems were military grade. He fired back at the wall. Weapons, but his shots bounced off their armored housings. Grunt was too big to find good cover. He stood in the open and let the energy beams hit him. His rock-like skin could absorb most of the damage, but Jake could see scorch marks appearing on his body. Even Grunt could not take this punishment forever. "We need to get out of here," Vorthik yelled over the sound of the weapons. "The doors are sealed," Grunt replied. "I cannot break through them." Jake was studying the attack pattern. The weapons fired in sequence, each one shooting for exactly 3 seconds before moving to the next target. There was a half-second gap between each weapon. It was an old defensive system, programmed to stop intruders but not kill them too quickly. "It is a capture system," Jake shouted to his teammates. "The weapons are not trying to kill us. They are trying to wear us down until we surrender." "What good does that do us?" Vorthik asked. "It means the system has weaknesses," Jake said. "Give me cover. I need to get to that control panel." Jake pointed to a maintenance panel on the far wall. It was behind 3 of the automated weapons, but if he could reach it, he might be able to shut down the defense system. "Are you crazy?" Grunt said. "You will be killed before you get halfway there." "Maybe," Jake said, "but I have an idea." Jake had been watching the weapons carefully. They were old, probably installed when the ship was first built. That meant they were using outdated targeting systems. They tracked movement, but they were not very smart about it. Jake pulled out his toolkit and quickly built a simple device. He took his scanner and connected it to a small motor from his plasma cutter. The scanner was about the same size as a human head, and the motor would make it move in a jerky pattern. "What are you doing?" Vorthik asked. "Making a decoy," Jake said. "These weapons are old. They will shoot at anything that moves like a person." Jake tossed the makeshift decoy to the right side of the cargo bay. The weapons immediately turned and started firing at it. While they were distracted, Jake ran to the left, staying low and moving as fast as he could. The plan worked perfectly. The weapons kept shooting at the decoy while Jake reached the control panel. But now he had a new problem. The panel was covered in Kithran symbols that he could not read. Jake had worked with alien technology before, but this was different. Kithran systems were designed to be tamper-proof. Most species could not even open the access panels, let alone understand the programming inside. But Jake was not most species. He was human, and humans were good at figuring out how things worked. He started tracing the power cables behind the panel, looking for the main control circuits. The weapons were still firing at his decoy, but they were starting to realize it was not a real target. Jake could see them beginning to scan the room again, looking for the actual intruders. "Hurry up," Vorthik yelled. "They are going to start shooting at us again." Jake found what he was looking for. The defense system had a central control unit that managed all the weapons. It was protected by several layers of security, but Jake could see how it worked. The Kitherans had built their systems to be logical and efficient. Jake pulled out his plasma cutter and started cutting through the control cables. He could not reprogram the system, but he could create a feedback loop that would make it attack itself. The weapons stopped firing at the decoy and started scanning the room again. Jake had maybe 30 seconds before they found him. He cut through the last cable and quickly reconnected it to a different port. The control system would now think that the weapons were intruders and try to defend against them. The plan worked. The weapons turned and started firing at each other instead of at the boarding party. Sparks flew as the energy beams hit the armored weapon housings. Within minutes, the entire defense system had destroyed itself. The cargo bay fell silent, except for the sound of cooling metal and the hum of the ship's life support systems. "How did you do that?" Vorthik asked. His red eyes were wide with surprise. "I made the system think it was under attack," Jake said. "The weapons were programmed to defend the ship, so they attacked what they thought were enemy weapons." "Very clever," Grunt said. "I would not have thought of that." The blast doors opened now that the defense system was down. But Jake was not ready to continue exploring the ship. He had learned something important about the Kitheran vessel, and he needed to share it with his crewmates. "We need to be more careful," Jake said. "This ship is not just a derelict. It is a trap." "What do you mean?" Vorthik asked. "Think about it," Jake said. "The ship has been here for 100 years, but everything still works perfectly. The defense system was active and waiting for intruders. Someone or something has been maintaining this ship." "The Kitherans are extinct," Grunt said. "There is no one left to maintain their ships." "Maybe not Kitherans," Jake said. "But someone has been here recently. I saw the signs when we first came aboard. Fresh marks on the floor, recently used control panels, air that smells like it is being actively recycled." Jake led his teammates to one of the control panels he had noticed earlier. He pointed to the display screen, which showed recent system activity. "Look at this," Jake said. "Someone accessed this terminal 2 days ago. They were checking the ship's defense systems and making adjustments." Vorthik studied the display. "You are right. Someone has been here recently, but who?" "I do not know," Jake said. "But I think we are going to find out." Jake was starting to understand why other salvage crews had disappeared in the Nightmare Sector. The ships here were not just abandoned derelicts. They were being used by someone or something that did not want visitors. "Should we leave?" Grunt asked. "This is getting dangerous." "We came here to do a job," Jake said. "But we need to be smart about it. No more splitting up. We stay together and watch each other's backs." They continued exploring the ship, but now they moved carefully and quietly. Jake kept his scanner running, looking for any signs of recent activity. He found them everywhere. Footprints in the dust, doors that had been recently opened, equipment that showed signs of recent use. The ship was not empty. Something was living here, and it was watching them. They reached the ship's main computer core, where the most valuable salvage would be stored. The room was filled with advanced computing equipment that was worth millions of credits. Jake was more interested in the data stored in the computers. "Can you access the ship's logs?" Vorthik asked. Jake connected his scanner to the computer system. The Kitheran security was tough, but he had learned a lot about their technology from the defense system. After a few minutes, he was able to access the ship's records. What he found changed everything. The computer files told a story that made Jake's blood run cold. The Kitheran battlecruiser had not been abandoned. It had been converted into something else entirely. The ship's log showed that a group of survivors from different species had been living here for decades, using the vessel as their base of operations. They are called the Collective, Jake said, reading from the screen. Survivors from ships that were destroyed or damaged in the Nightmare Sector. Instead of dying, they banded together and started living on the derelict vessels. How many of them are there? Vorthik asked. Jake scrolled through the data. According to this, about 50 individuals from 12 different species. They have been here for over 30 years, maintaining the ships and defending their territory. Territory? Grunt asked. They think they own this place? They do own it, Jake said. Look at this map. They control over 100 ships in this sector. They use the ships as homes, workshops, and storage facilities. Anyone who tries to salvage here is either killed or forced to join them. That explains what happened to the missing crews, Vorthik said. They were captured and given a choice. Join the Collective or die. Jake found more disturbing information in the files. The Collective had been watching the Starbreaker since it entered the sector. They knew exactly who the crew was and what they were planning to do. The defense system attack had been a test to see how the boarding party would react. We need to get back to the ship, Jake said. Captain Zektar and Lyra are in danger. But as they turned to leave, they found their way blocked. A group of aliens stood in the doorway, pointing weapons at them. Jake counted at least 8 different species, all wearing makeshift armor and carrying modified weapons. The leader was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and 6 arms. He spoke in perfect galactic standard, the common language used by most spacefaring species. Welcome to our home, the leader said. I am Commander Nexus, leader of the Collective. You have done well to survive our defenses. Most salvage crews do not make it this far. What do you want? Vorthik asked, his hands moving toward his weapons. I would not do that, Nexus said. You are outnumbered and outgunned. We do not wish to kill you, but we will if necessary. Jake stepped forward. You are the ones who have been taking the salvage crews. Taking is such an ugly word, Nexus said. We prefer to think of it as recruiting. Life in the Nightmare Sector is harsh. We need skilled individuals to help us maintain our ships and defend our territory. And if we refuse? Jake asked. Then you will join the many others who have refused. Nexus said. Their remains are scattered throughout the sector, a warning to future visitors. Jake looked at his teammates. Vorthik was ready to fight, but they were badly outnumbered. Grunt could probably take several of the Collective members, but not all of them. And Jake was just a human with a small pistol. We need time to think. About it, Jake said. Of course, Nexus said. But while you think, your friends on the Starbreaker are being brought here. They will join you in making this important decision. Jake felt his heart sink. If the Collective had captured Zektar and Lyra, then the situation was much worse than he had thought. But he also realized that this might be an opportunity. The Collective wanted to recruit them, not kill them. That meant they had some value. As prisoners, what kind of work would we be doing? Jake asked. Whatever needs to be done, Nexus said. Engineering, maintenance, security, salvage operations. We are a community of survivors, and everyone contributes according to their abilities. And if we join you, we can never leave? Where would you go? Nexus asked. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Here, you have protection, purpose, and a chance to make a real difference. Jake was thinking fast. The Collective had been successful for 30 years because they were smart and organized. They had turned the Nightmare Sector into their personal kingdom, using the derelict ships as a fortress. But they also had weaknesses. Can we see the rest of your operation? Jake asked. If we are going to join you, we want to know what we are getting into. Nexus smiled. Of course. I am very proud of what we have built here. The collective leader led them through the ship, showing them the areas that had been converted into living spaces. The old crew quarters had been turned into apartments. The cargo bays had been converted into workshops and storage areas. The ship's hydroponic gardens were producing food for the entire community. It was impressive. But Jake was looking for something else. He was studying the ship's systems, looking for weaknesses he could exploit. The collective had done a good job of maintaining the vessel, but they had also made changes that created new vulnerabilities. Your power distribution system is very efficient, Jake said. But what happens if the main power core fails? We have backup generators, Nexus said, and we can share power with other ships in our fleet if necessary. What about the ships? Navigation systems? Are they still functional? We do not need navigation, Nexus said. We are not going anywhere. This is our home. That was the weakness Jake had been looking for. The collective had gotten so comfortable living on the derelict ships that they had forgotten how to be mobile. They were sitting ducks if someone could find a way to attack them. They reached the ship's main hangar, where the Starbreaker was. Docked, Jake could see Zektar and Lyra being held under guard by several collective members. Both of them looked unhurt, but worried. Your crew is safe, Nexus said. They will remain that way as long as you cooperate. We need to discuss this as a team, Jake said. Can we have a few minutes alone? Of course, Nexus said. But remember, you are being watched. Any attempt to escape or resist will result in immediate consequences. Jake and his teammates were taken to a secure room where they could talk privately. But Jake was sure they were being monitored, so he had to be careful about what he said. We cannot stay here, Vorthik whispered. I would rather die fighting than live as a prisoner. We are not going to die, Jake said. And we are not going to be prisoners. We are going to escape. How? Grunt asked. We are outnumbered 50-1. We do not need to fight all of them, Jake said. We just need to get to our ship and get out of here. Jake had been thinking about the problem while they toured the ship. The collective strength was also their weakness. They had gotten comfortable and lazy after 30 years of easy success. They were not expecting real resistance from a small salvage crew. I have a plan, Jake said. But it is going to require perfect timing and a lot of luck. What do you need us to do? Vorthik asked. Jake explained his plan. It was risky and complicated, but it was their only chance. They would have to work together perfectly, and they would have to trust each other completely. Are you sure this will work? Grunt asked. No, Jake said. But it is better than staying here forever. The plan was pure human audacity. Instead of trying to sneak out or fight their way out, Jake was going to convince the collective to let them go voluntarily. All he needed was the right opportunity and the right words. When Nexus returned, Jake was ready for him. Jake stood up when Commander Nexus entered the room. We have made our decision, he said. We want to join the collective. Nexus smiled. Excellent. I knew you would make the right choice. Your skills will be very valuable to our community. But first, we need to send a message to our employers, Jake said. The Galactic Salvage Guild is expecting us to report back. If we disappear without explanation, they will send other ships to look for us. That is not a problem, Nexus said. We have dealt with search parties before. They usually join us or become fertilizer for our gardens. This will be different. Jake said, our captain has connections with the Galactic Navy. If we disappear, they will send warships to investigate. Do you really want to fight a fleet of military vessels? Nexus looked worried for the first time. What kind of message do you want to send? Something simple, Jake said. We will tell them that the Nightmare Sector is more dangerous than expected, and that we are returning to base. That will buy you time to prepare for future visitors. And you will not reveal our location? Why would we? Jake asked. We are part of the collective now. Your secrets are our secrets. Nexus thought about it for a moment. Very well. You may send your message. But it will be monitored, and any attempt to betray us will result in immediate punishment. Understood, Jake said. Can we use our ships? Communication system? Our employers will be suspicious if the message comes from an unknown source. I will escort you to your ship personally, Nexus said. Along with the security team, of course. Jake nodded. This was exactly what he had hoped. FOR. The plan was moving forward perfectly. They walked to the hangar where the Starbreaker was docked. Jake could see Zektar and Lyra being held near the ship's boarding ramp. Both of them looked surprised to see Jake walking freely with the collective leader. Jake, Zektar said, what is happening? We are joining the collective, Jake said loudly. It is the smart thing to do. Jake made eye contact with his captain and gave him a slight nod. Zektar was an experienced spacer, and he understood that Jake was up to something. He did not say anything, but Jake could see the understanding in his eyes. Jake walked up the boarding ramp and onto the Starbreaker. The ship felt like home after the alien environment of the Kitharin vessel. He went straight to the communication console and started preparing to send a message. Remember, Nexus said, we are listening to everything you say. Of course, Jake said. I have nothing to hide. Jake began recording the message. This is Jake Morrison of the salvage vessel Starbreaker. We have encountered unexpected difficulties in the Nightmare Sector and are returning to base immediately. Recommend that other crews avoid this area until further notice. End transmission. Send it, Nexus said. Jake pressed the transmission button, but he had made a small change to the message that Nexus could not see. Hidden in the communication protocols was a coded signal that would tell the Galactic Salvage Guild exactly where they were and what kind of danger they were facing. Jake had learned the emergency codes during his time in the Earth Navy. The signal would look like normal background static to most people, but trained operators would recognize it immediately. Help was on the way, but it would take time to arrive. There, Jake said. Message sent. Now what? Now you begin your new life with us, Nexus said. But first, we need to transfer your ship's cargo to our storage facilities. Standard procedure. For new members. This was the part Jake had been waiting for. Once the collective members started moving cargo, they would be distracted and spread out. That would give his crew the chance they needed to escape. Can my crew help with the transfer? Jake asked. We know our ship better than anyone else. Of course, Nexus said. The more hands we have, the faster it will go. Jake walked down the boarding ramp and rejoined his crewmates. They were still being watched by armed guards, but the atmosphere was more relaxed now that they had agreed to join the collective. Vorthik. Grunt, Jake said. Help them move the cargo. Zektar and Lyra, come with me to shut down the ship's systems. As they walked back onto the Starbreaker, Jake whispered to his captain and navigator, Get ready to launch. We are leaving in 5 minutes. How? Zektar whispered back. There are guards everywhere. Trust me, Jake said. Just be ready to fly when I give the signal. Jake led them to the ship's engine room. He started working on the power distribution panel, making it look like he was shutting down the ship's systems, but he was actually doing the opposite. He was charging the engines and preparing the ship for an emergency launch. What are you really doing? Lyra asked quietly. Creating a distraction, Jake said. In about 3 minutes, every light in this sector is going to go out. When that happens, we run for the ship and get out of here. Jake had been studying the collective's power grid while they toured the Kitharin vessel. All of their ships were connected to a central power distribution network. If he could overload the main power core, it would create a massive electrical surge that would shut down every system in the sector. But that will leave them without power, Lyra said. They could die. No, Jake said. Their backup systems will kick in after a few minutes. But those few minutes will give us the confusion we need to escape. Jake finished his work on the power panel and signaled to Zektar. Start the pre-flight sequence. Keep it quiet. Zektar began powering up the ship's systems, while Jake went back outside to rejoin the cargo transfer operation. Vorthik and Grunt were helping the collective members move boxes and equipment out of the Starbreaker's cargo hold. How much more? Jake asked Nexus. About 10 more minutes, Nexus replied. Your ship carried quite a lot of supplies. Actually, Jake said, I think there might be a problem with your power distribution system. I noticed some irregularities in the readings while I was shutting down our ship. What kind of irregularities? Nexus asked, looking concerned. Voltage spikes in the main power grid, Jake said. If they get worse, you could have a complete system failure. Show me. Nexus said. Jake led Nexus and several other collective members to a power distribution panel on the wall of the hangar. He pointed to various readings and made up technical problems that sounded convincing. While he was distracting the leaders, Vorthik and Grunt were slowly moving closer to the Starbreaker. They had understood Jake's plan and were getting ready to run for the ship. I think I can fix the problem, Jake said, but I need to access the main power control room. It is on level 12, Nexus said. I will take you there myself. That is not necessary, Jake said. Just give me the access codes. I can handle it. Nexus was about to respond when every light in the hangar went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, but the sudden darkness created exactly the confusion Jake had been hoping. FOR run. Jake shouted to his crewmates. Jake sprinted toward the Starbreaker, while collective members stumbled around in the dim emergency lighting. He could hear Nexus shouting orders, but the confusion was too great for anyone to respond quickly. Vorthik and Grunt were already at the ship's boarding ramp. Zektar had the engines warmed up and ready to go. Lyra was at the navigation station, plotting their escape route. Everyone aboard? Zektar called out. Go, go, go! Jake yelled as he dove through the ship's airlock. The Starbreaker lifted off. From the hangar deck, just as the collective members started shooting, energy beams flew past the ship as it accelerated toward the hangar exit. Jake could hear the hull taking hits, but nothing critical was damaged. Hangar doors are closing. Lyra reported. Can we make it? Zektar asked. We have to, Jake said. Full power to engines. The Starbreaker shot through the closing hangar doors with only meters to spare. They were free of the Kithrin vessel, but they were not safe yet. The collective had other ships, and they would be coming after them soon. Set course for the sector boundary, Zektar ordered. Maximum speed. Wait, Jake said. I need to do one more thing. Jake ran to the communication console and sent another coded message. This one contained the exact location of the collective's base and detailed information about their operations. The Galactic Navy would be very interested in a group of pirates who had been attacking salvage crews for 30 years. Now we can go, Jake said. The Starbreaker raced through the nightmare sector at top speed. Behind them, Jake could see other ships starting to give chase, but the Starbreaker was faster than the old derelict vessels the collective was using. They reached the edge of the sector, just as Jake's emergency signal was answered. A squadron of Galactic Navy cruisers dropped out of hyperspace, their weapons powered and ready for battle. This is Admiral Carter of the Fifth Fleet, came a voice over the radio. Are you the crew that sent the distress signal? Yes, sir, Zektar replied. We have information about a pirate base in the nightmare sector. Transmit your data, Admiral Carter said. We will handle it from here. Jake watched through the ship's rear cameras as the Navy fleet moved into the Nightmare Sector. The collective's 30-year reign of terror was about to end. "How did you know the Navy would respond so quickly?" Vorthik asked. "I did not," Jake said. "But humans have a saying, 'It is better to be lucky than smart.' You were both," Zektar said. "Your plan saved all our lives." As the Starbreaker jumped into hyperspace, Jake reflected on what had happened. He had started this job as an outsider, someone his